Hello guys, my name is Abby. Welcome to Alb's Wellness. If you are new here, welcome. This is where we create fitness, mindfulness, food, all of the above. So today I'm going to be reflecting on the relation and bond between work ethic, drive, ambition, and its cousin to reward, failure, and risk. I'm going to be looking at the psychology of a workaholic podcast style on my life. So we're going to be reflecting on my life, take a look at the psychological behaviors, what the common denominator was, and kind of just go through it together. I've been on social media for quite a long time now, about 4 years since the pandemic hit. We're gonna go all the way back to 2020. I was a hardcore yogi. I just came out of my 200-hour yoga teacher training, had actually started my very first business, and we're gonna be talking about my failed businesses. We're gonna be talking about what I learned from them, and why it didn't work out. In 2020, I created my very first business called Flow with Abby. Not only did I create this business, it was a online yoga studio. I pioneered and created the website. I created the scheduling. I created, executed, filmed, and edited all of the videos. I did live classes. I did pre-recording. I did the communications. I did the marketing, the receipts, everything. I did absolutely everything under the sun. I poured my heart and soul into this business, to Flow with Abby, and I actually ended up getting a $500 profit out of it, which is amazing for a startup company. But what ended up happening is I ended up burning out big time. Because while I created this whole business, thing by myself from CEO to manager to worker to scheduler, communicator, marketing, all of that, I was also a full-time student. And on top of that, I was also working a normal 9 to 5. I got completely burnt out. What I learned from that experience of that failed business is that no one can do it all. And I had to let that sink in. Not even the most driven, the most disciplined can do it all. No one person can do all of that at once. It's because it's not sustainable. So that was a hard pill to swallow for me because I am a very ambitious person. I am very goal oriented. I get a lot of fulfillment, accomplishments. So launching that was a dream, and then watching it fall to the ground purely because I couldn't keep up with it was a pretty hard pill to swallow. It was a great business. I had great clients and great students. I just couldn't keep up. Got mentally and physically drained. I ended up getting injuries. Before I move on, I just want to say how incredibly proud I am that I was able to do all of that. In the same position now, I wouldn't even be able to go through with it just because I would see the signs of a burnout beginning to happen. But I'm incredibly proud because that shows a lot of potential, and that shows just what kind of person I am, the character that I have. Building and maintaining that business for a year did teach me a lot, and I did gain a lot of experience from it. So even though it failed, I am better for it in the long run. Skip to end of 2020 and coming into 2021, that definitely did send me into a bit of a spiral because it's hard when you have such a passion for something. So for example, yoga, I loved yoga so much, and to mix business with pleasure, it kind of kills your passion, right? It stings. So that definitely sent me into a spiral because self-doubt started seeping in. Now skipping to 2022 and 2023, I was about my second, third year into university at that point, and I was focusing more so on my in-person teaching. I pretty much ditched the online platform at that point, took down my website. I wasn't doing anything online. Everything was just in person. And this was nice because it took that pressure and that weight off. I was able to just create the classes, show up, and then interact with my students. I did a series of just workshops, handstands, and live classes in person. And that was nice, but it definitely, and not to dismay the companies that I worked with, the studios that I worked under were amazing. To go from owning a company and creating such beauty and seeing your vision come to life and to just do classes at a business, it definitely, I'm going to say it took a hit to the ego. I'm not too proud to say that. Something was missing at that point. Even though I was having a little bit less on my plate, still full-time student, full-time working, plus teaching, it led to another inevitable burnout at that point. I also just want to say a little side note. Throughout these 4 years, I have experienced numerous amount of burnouts that I don't think anybody should ever experience. That's partially why I'm making this video of the psychology of a workaholic. Maybe this kind of sparks something and somebody can relate and see the common denominators in their own life, can see the signs that are leading to a burnout. Now coming into the full swing end of 2022, kind of early 2023, I have made a decision that was a hard pill to swallow because in 2020 I was such a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I was such a go-getter, and I had, the whole world at my feet, and I had really poured my heart and soul into it, and then I had a failed business. And now, looking at it 4 years after the fact, it's a lot of an easier pill to swallow because I look at it from a different perspective. I actually gained a lot from it. That was a lot on the mentality. And so I had made a decision that was a hard one, and I had made the decision to step back completely from making any businesses, from trying to make any moves, from teaching yoga altogether, which was a big passion because you know what? I found that I didn't even enjoy practicing anymore. And I had found that my teaching was more so just fulfilling my students, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled myself. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, and you're not in a good headspace, you should just take a step back. So that's what I did. I took a step back for almost 2 years. I had a lot of physical injuries. My wrist was really bothering me. I had tendinitis going up to my shoulder. When your mentality is bad, when things are negative up here, it really does show throughout your body. And something happened, and it was a decision that I made, and I stand by it to this day because I made the decision with the cards that I was dealt. But when I took that step back, I really fell into a spiral, and I lost myself in a way that I've never lost myself before. Bear in mind, I was in my very early 20s. I was 21 at this point, and so really, theoretically, you don't actually know who you are because you're just forming yourself, right? I'm in university, I'm working full time. I moved away from home when I was 18, and so really, I just had huge imposter syndrome. I had no idea who I was, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely lost. I felt as if I abandoned all of my values, and I was beginning to question even my character. That wasn't a great feeling because yoga was kind of that last thing that was holding the foundation together. And when I had stepped away from that, it's almost just like everything crumbled around me, and I didn't know what to do in terms of who I was because how can you make a decision when you don't know who you are, what you want at that point? That was one of my low points. And believe it or not, this is not the lowest point of the story. We're going to get to that very shortly. So that was 2023. So now we're hitting 2024. I do want to flip onto the more positive side of things before I get into the next failed business because I had lost pretty much essentially who I was, and I lost all of my friends at this point, close ones. I really didn't know what to do with my life because of that low point. I actually did find some really cool hobbies that I still cling to this day that bring me a lot of joy. For example, running. I love running now. I ran my half marathon. Running brings me a lot of peace if I'm ever feeling really frazzled in the go for a run, and that helps clear my head. I found my love in painting again because I used to be an artist when I was younger, and now I'm working on being in art exhibits more often. I have my art displayed. In 2024, I want to say in the summertime of 2024, I had created another business. This business was actually called Inner Flow Studios. I was kind of pulling from the same idea of Flow with Abby because I had been so successful in the first year with a $500 profit. I created this within the intent to do more in-person things, but still be able to hold private sessions online. I was starting to do all this, and I was starting to do everything by myself again. I was putting all of these things on my plate, and then I had realized, stopped myself after my first class, and I had noticed some patterns. I had noticed that I was putting everything on my plate again, and yes, I could do it because I was a very driven person, but sooner or later, I was going to burn out. I'm really proud of myself to this day. I don't know if I fully consciously saw what I was doing or if I was just subconsciously picking those signs up, but I had realized and stopped and said, if I keep going down this road, I am going to burn out. Reality is, when you want to do something to that scale and start a business, you need support. Whether it be with a manager, whether it be, be pour more money into softwares that do it for you, you need support at the end of the day. And I wasn't getting it because I was still in the end of my undergrad degree in kinesiology, and that's a pretty heavy degree, right? You can't even minor in anything because the major is so big. I had realized that and I had stopped. This business, I don't consider it necessarily a fail because I had just stopped that business altogether, realizing that it is too much. So the common denominator inside all of these failed businesses, these failed attempts, common denominator inside being a workaholic was that it was not sustainable. So I had to shift a little bit. I stopped that and I kept working. Okay, you know what? At this point, I'm done school. I had graduated I had graduated a semester early. So at this point, I was working full time. I was done school and I wasn't doing any kind of entrepreneur things. This was the first time in my life in 3 years that I wasn't doing social media. I wasn't doing any business propositions. I was just straight up working 9 to 5. In reality, it was actually like a 4 to 12. Anyways, I was doing that for the first time in my life. I'm not gonna lie, I was really reaching a depressive state at that point because if you don't do anything that you enjoy and you're just doing a 9 to 5, it gets pretty depressing. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you eat, you bring lunch if you can. If you don't, you usually get takeout. You work 8 to 12 hours, you go home, you sleep, you repeat. That's not a way to live. There's no hobbies, there's no friends, there's no community, there's nothing. Skip to now October of 2024. I got laid off and that was hard. This is the first time that I'm really publicly talking about it because you know what? When you get laid off, even if it's not your fault, it feels embarrassing. I got laid off from a company that unfortunately had to do budget cuts. They were dealing with a big financial deficit, so they let me and other people go. That was hard because even though it is not you or a reflection of your work ethic or a reflection of anything that you have to offer, your skill set, it still leaves that feeling of embarrassment. Also, that feeling of, holy crap, what am I going to do? I can truthfully say when I got laid off is when I hit that full rock bottom. It's almost like I was caught on a rock on my way down, and right there when I got laid off, that was my complete rock bottom. And here's why. I got laid off. I'm now 23 and I'm living in a completely different city away from all of my friends and my family. I now have rent to pay. I now have bills to pay. I have student loans. I've got groceries. I've got car insurance. I've got phone bills. I have all of these adult responsibilities after school because I'm no longer in school and I have no job, no prospects. That was when I truly hit my rock bottom. And it was hard. I had to really just stop for a second and go, okay, what am I doing with my life at this point? I can now say that I am glad that I was at that point because honestly, if that job didn't let me go, I think that I would still be in that same depressive mindset. Not to say that I'm glad that I got laid off, but I'm glad it worked out the way it did because I was not in a good mental state. Because of the fact that I got laid off, it got me to switch my perspective. I was able to go, okay, I have literally nothing to lose now, so what am I going to do with my life? That last action, that last kick over the edge was the thing that made me think about my life. I was able to look and see what made me happy, and I had realized nothing in my life made me happy. The move from October to November was the most transformative month in my whole adulthood. Somehow managed to find a job that values me, managed to create a community of wellness on social media platforms that I have today. I managed to find my inner peace again. And I was slowly on top of that, I was slowly rebuilding my relationship and my love for yoga in a different way because my practice is not going to look the same as it did 4 years ago. That rock bottom, I am happy that happened because I am better for it now. Actually, can truthfully say that I'm very happy with where I am in my life now. So now we're skipping to at the end of 2024 and 2025. So we're gonna say December of 2024. I have my YouTube channel, which is very fulfilling for me because I have my creative outlet. I have something that's mine. It's tangible. I've created it. My vision is coming to life. And yet I have a community that I can connect with. I have my TikTok account. I have my Instagram page. And I find myself creating things that I'm passionate about. And I had realized another common theme in all of these failed attempts over the years, that not only was I burning myself out constantly and it wasn't sustainable, I was also pouring all of my joy and all of my happy into my successes. I realized this. So that is the behavior that a workaholic has. The fact is, if you're a workaholic, you always will get your joys and your jollies and your happiness straight from your successes and your accomplishments. That's how you measure your happiness. And I would realize, man, that is really toxic actually. And that comes unfortunately with that framework of being a workaholic. And that is something that is not sustainable at all if you want to have any form of balanced mentality whatsoever. Once I saw that last common denominator of, okay, I'm literally just getting happy when I'm getting successes, I knew that I was going to be better off and I had to make a change. So what I started doing is I started getting my happiness elsewhere. So not to say that I don't have goals anymore, not to say that I don't have things that I'm setting out for myself, because I'm looking right now at my vision board and it's sitting right on top of my fridge. All of my goals for 2025. Definitely have a vision board still. But with that being said, I don't just find my happiness from my successes, because that puts too much pressure on a person. It's not sustainable, and quite honestly, it's like a toxic relationship that nobody deserves. All human, we should not be pouring all of our happiness and joy, measuring it inside our successes. I had started slowly shifting it back to finding joy in my morning practice, finding joy in my morning meditation, finding joy in my walks, in painting, things that were just for me, not always for the consumer. And that was something really important that I am not very happy it took me 4 years to learn. But if that's the time it took me to learn it, hey, I'm a very stubborn person, so I could see that happening. My biggest takeaway for all of this, if you are in a similar boat, reflect. Reflection is a really powerful tool. Reflect on your past. Look towards your future. Be present in the moment. Look for common denominators if you keep falling into a burnout, because now that I know my signs and symptoms of a burnout, I haven't had one in months, and I can say confidently that throughout the 4 years, I would experience a burnout probably once every 1 to 2 months, which is so unhealthy, so beyond toxic. I'm glad that I was able to share my story today, because the behaviors of a workaholic is not something that is healthy or sustainable whatsoever. The psychology behind it is just all mind consuming, just is gonna leave a person to crumble. That's pretty much everything I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. I'm still a little puffy from my wisdom teeth surgery, which was 6 days ago now. To be honest, my cheeks are sore from all that talking, but I'll see you guys later. Bye.